People say robots will take our jobs. People say computers will be better drivers than us. People say there will be too many humans for our planet's resources to cope. People say that artificial intelligence is smarter than human intelligence. People say the Arctic will melt. People say it's the end of history, the end of the world as we know it.
We will never do better than a high-precision robot. We will never think faster than a supercomputer. We will never be able to store more data than a pen drive. This is not happening tomorrow. This is already happening today. Never in our history has everything changed so fundamentally, so fast.
What if artificial intelligence in the workplace meant humans would have free time to travel the world? Discover themselves, explore their creativity, dedicate their time to further scientific research. What if computers became so capable that we find a cure to cancer? Find alternative sources of energy and the resources to sustain 3 billion additional humans.
Because 11 billion humans means 3 billion more brains than today. More creativity, more solutions to the human challenges that at the present seem impossible to overcome. 3 billion times more human energy to dedicate to improving the state of our world. What if, in a world like this, we redefine wealth? How about new economic models pioneered by social entrepreneurs in which prosperity and impact matter more than money?
Never in our history have we had access to so many resources, technology, brain power, and human energy to solve our problems. Never in our history have we had access to so much data and the capacity to process it. Never in our history have we had so many young people lived on Earth.
The third rule of science fiction author Arthur C. Clarke clearly states that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Science is no longer fiction. Everything has become possible. Everything is to be invented, and it all starts now with you, the leaders, creators, thinkers of our tomorrow. This is our future, our global future. Together, let's redefine what humans need to know, master, and practice. The skills for our tomorrow. Welcome to the Global Youth Nation. Welcome to Riyadh. Welcome to the Misk Global Forum.
ضيوفنا الكرام، رحبوا معنا بإيدي لاش، محرر تنفيذي في هاب كلتشر ومقدم لبرنامج Global Goals Cast.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage E.D. Lush, Executive Editor, Hub Culture and co-host, Global Goals Cast.
Good morning. Thank you so much for making me feel so welcome here in Saudi Arabia. This is my first time here, and I'm absolutely loving it. Welcome to all of you to the day 2 of the Misk Global Forum. I arrived yesterday, and I was walking down through the corridors and had some incredible moments. I quite like to meditate, and I found myself in the middle of a moving painting with music just down the hall. So if you're feeling like you want to take a moment of calm, I highly, highly recommend that. I also passed into the skills garage just next door, where I walked into what I thought was going to be a space station, and I found myself in conversation face-to-face with people who were in New York City. So I think this is an incredible event that's been created. I also want you to make it your event. Via the app you can download, you can see all of the events today, all of the speakers in all of the different parts of the building. And just to add to that, you can also make friends. So what I want to do is have you all turn to the person next to you, and with your badge, let's try a little experiment of making a new friend. If you press on the button, which is on your badge, and it'll turn from blue to blinking green. I see some right there. I see some back there. I actually made about 10 new contacts this way yesterday, and then having a look through, I immediately could see the kinds of connections, the kinds of business we could do, the kinds of conversations I could have even after this event finishes. So it is my absolute delight this morning to start the conversation off. We've got two incredible people to welcome to the stage. His Excellency Dr. Ahmad Belhoul al-Falasi. He's the Minister of State for Higher Education and Advanced Skills. He's also the chairman of the UAE Space Agency and the chairman of the Federal Authority for Human Resources in the UAE. And he's going to be joined by Razan, Alayed. She's the advisor for the Education and Human Resources Council in the UAE. So please give them a very warm welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Your Excellency. And welcome to Riyadh and the Misk Global Forum.
Yes. First of all, thank you for having me. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allow me first to use this opportunity to thank His Royal Highness, Prince Mohammed bin Salman bin Abdul Aziz Al Saud, Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Chairman of Misk, and His Excellency Badr Al Asakir, Chairman of the Misk Initiative Center, and really thank the whole team behind Misk who made this all happen and welcomed me in a very hospitable way. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. We're very happy and honored to have you here with us. So today, if you allow me, we want to do things slightly differently. Your Excellency, thank you for applying for this job opportunity. Let us start the interview process. So first, I'd like to start with a small brain teaser to get us moving this morning. How many golf balls can you actually fit in a school bus?
You're taking this seriously.
Yes, it's actually a question that they ask in consulting interviews.
Actually, I was asked that question in my consultancy interview. Well, if I was 10 years back, I would do it the typical consulting way. I would say, how high is the bus, the length, the width, calculate the volume. Maybe even if I want to be smart and impress you, I would say, but there are also seats, calculate the seats, divide that by the number of golf balls, and come back with a number. But today, I'm a minister, and I can call my friend Minister Hussein, actually, once and for all, get you a school bus, stuff it with balls, count it, and get you the right number.
Okay. So now maybe let's go back to your CV, Your Excellency. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey, and what made you the person that you are today?
Yes. So I'm an engineer by discipline. I studied telecommunications engineering in Khalifa University in the UAE. And then I went abroad to continue my studies. I actually started in the US. I started in the US in 2001, September. But you all know what happened at that time. And I moved to Australia. I did my master's there in Melbourne University, followed by my PhD in Monash, all in telecommunications, all in engineering. And I was able to, in a short period of time, accomplish a lot in my field, 4G mobile systems, acquired a patent. And then I went back to the UAE. I started my career lecturing at a university. But to be honest, within the first year, I realized that at that point in time, my passion was more on research. And at home, at that time, a PhD was basically a license to teach. I didn't get a chance to really practice the research aspect of it. So I wanted to change careers. And having a PhD in engineering, the old legacy in this region, you're either Bash Muhandis or a doctor. I had both. You can imagine the ego I had. So I went and applied to the telecom incumbent at home, Etisalat. And to my surprise, I was rejected. I was overqualified. And then I applied to the second company that came in, also no response. I applied to the Telecom Regulatory Authority. I said, fine, if I can't work at the companies, maybe the regulator would value my experience. Same thing, overqualified. So really that was a point in my time where I was very surprised that I've invested so much time in some of the best schools to be the best globally in what I do, yet I was still considered overqualified, couldn't get a job. I met a good classmate of mine once in a casual dinner, and he said, Ahmad, have you considered consulting? And to me, that never crossed my mind. I thought, I don't have an MBA, but he told me, look, 50% of the people we hire are non-MBAs. They're engineers, they're medical doctors, they're lawyers. And I started reading up, and I realized that while I may have been overqualified in telecom, I was actually much underqualified for consulting. So I took it upon myself. I studied everything from accounting, marketing, sales, strategy, organizational culture and behavior, and started getting into the habit of doing case studies like the one you just asked me. And before doing the interviews, I realized why such companies valued my PhD more so than the telecom provider, because they valued the thought process. They valued the 4 years that I've spent, or 5, studying a PhD, where you come up with an idea, innovative idea, you try to prove it right, you do your experiments, and then through that period, you actually have to publish. So you'd have to go, as a young PhD student, on a conference amongst experts and defend your thought. So I started understanding that, look, these guys did not appreciate my education, my degree, they appreciate the skill that I've gained through that process. And then I joined the consulting firm McKinsey. My first study was in telecom, so it was an easier transition. In Saudi, by the way, first 3 months. And then typical story happened. Within 2 years, one of my clients hired me in, Mubadala. I think many of us know the company. It's one of the biggest sovereign wealth investment funds. And I stayed there for about 3 years. I worked on industry, on investments, and there again, I was not from an investment background. I had to also go through the CFA program myself, get acquainted with what does it take to invest. And maybe one of the biggest challenges there in Mubadala was, you pitch in an investment. I've pitched once an investment worth $2 billion. And you invested, and you pitch it to an investment committee. These are quite senior people on the top of the organization who get pitched to every week by everybody within Mubadala, 700 employees. So you have to have a really compelling story. You have to be able to respond in a short period of time. And thirdly, you have to be confident and passionate. I was lucky enough to get most of my proposals approved. And then as I got promoted, one of the members of the council told me, he said, Ahmed, I choose my vote depending on one thing only. How passionate and strongly do you feel about the proposal? If you don't believe in it, how do you expect me to invest in it? But that also taught me the skill of negotiation, the skill of being to articulate the elevator pitch to the most important aspects. I was very happy with my job. I got a phone call from a friend of mine, Hilal Marri. He was appointed the DG of the Tourism Authority in Dubai, and he wanted me to work for 1 year to help him out to set the strategy. I went there for a year. We developed the Dubai tourism strategy, 20 million tourists by 2020. We set up the team, we set up projects, and I came back to Mubadala. When I came back, I was appointed to one of the companies that Mubadala owned. I was appointed as CEO of Masdar. In that role, to me, it was a huge jump. It was my first high leadership role. And I quickly got to understand the sector, the dynamics. 2.5 years into it, I got appointed by His Highness. And then I had no choice. I was just given jobs.
MashaAllah, I mean, this sounds very... This is very impressive, Your Excellency. I mean, you've moved from different positions to different industries, starting in academia, moving into tourism, higher education, and finally space as well. But you do seem to be a bit overqualified for what we're looking for. So why should we hire you?
Again? Well, look, certainly I'm not the smartest person. You can always hire people who are far smarter than I am. I bet you half the people in this room are smarter than I am. Thank you. And I won't talk about my personal attributes. You have the referrals on the CV, you can call them and check on me. No, but on a more serious note, if I were to pick one skill that you would hire me for a job that I'm not aware of, it could be a job in 2025 that does not exist today, but regardless, I would say it's my capacity to adapt. And I think I've learned that skill during my first transition from being very deep in my field to being more of a management consultant. The ability to move from industry investments to tourism, to renewable energy, to space, to HR, to other entities, you pick up a skill where A, you have to get acquainted with the industry quite quick. You won't be the world expert, but you'd have sufficient depth to be able to have informative discussions with your team. And sometimes you have to impress them, to be honest. Don't think that being a leader that you can lead. You have to lead by inspiring people, and people who get someone appointed as a CEO on top, not within, sometimes have that kind of a culture of who's this smart guy coming in. So you have to sometimes prove that you know the content. And secondly, equally important, you need to understand the dynamics of the organization. Many leaders fail because they fail to understand what inspires people. They fail to understand the dynamics between the different departments, the different key people, and even externally, if you're in a company or an entity, how do you work with the other entity? There's a lot of, maybe in government more so than other places historically, people who want to take credit. So are you willing to let go of credit to win over people? So adapting to the sector, adapting to the people around it, and adapting also your lifestyle. You have to manage your lifestyle. If anything, I would say hire me for my adaptability.
Great. So maybe if I go back to your CV, I want to focus on your current role as the Minister of State for Higher Education and Advanced Skills in the UAE. We've been hearing a lot in the media and also during the talks that we had yesterday on the importance of academic degrees. So much that some multinationals today don't hire just based on credentials, but they're actually valuing more the skills of the individual. So I'd love to know what are your thoughts on that, and what, in your opinion, is the highest degree?
Well, it's certainly not a PhD. I've done that before. It's not the highest degree. I mean, look, there are a lot of people out there, especially at this day and age, who argue and say, do you really need to go through a 4-year bachelor's, right? We've seen companies like Google and others who hire based on a skill. So you could absolutely have a high school degree, do a focused course on AI coding, and get a job. That's not a problem. But you need to ask yourself, am I doing this to serve a company's short-term requirement? So if I'm Google today, and I want somebody who has advanced data analytics on website consumer behavior, right? I want that skill. And you will train yourself for that skill. You're serving my need, and I'm using you as a resource. However, my strong belief is, if your ultimate goal is your own fulfillment and your own development, not to respond to a request that might change with time, I truly believe that you need to have an anchor. Every person in this room needs to have a specialization, be it economics, engineering, law, whatever it may be. Because while you study that content, you get to learn transferable and soft skills. You can't build soft skills in silo. So if I compare to the previous example, somebody with a high school who did a course on coding, he or she would have not gone through the experience of a learning where you get to work with other teams, where you get to defend a thesis, where you get to collaborate globally, and also learn and really instill these soft skills that everybody's looking for. So in summary, my view is you have to be what I refer to, you have to move from being an I learner, where you're very deep, where I used to be, to becoming more of a T learner. So you have a lot of soft skills that are cutting across, but you do have to have depth. You can't have no substance to develop your skills around. Would that be 4 years? I don't know. It could be 3 or 2 in the future, but you definitely need, I believe, a core major that you can work around.
Okay, great. Okay, so what I'm hearing from you is that academic degrees are still important, which I see is very reassuring for all the university students that we have here. But with all the technological disruptions that are happening today, how do you envision the university of tomorrow to look like?
Good question. So I truly believe that technology is helping education. And if I ask anybody in this room, how do you think is technology improving or helping higher education specifically? What comes to people's mind is convenience, right? So you don't have to go to a class, take notes. You can do it online, you can do it whenever you want. Some people might think about access. So we have, people who are displaced due to humanitarian reasons can actually log in and get a course. Or somebody who's underprivileged cannot go to MIT. Today, with technology, he or she can access the best courses globally. Other people might say, no, it's more on the data side. Today, all universities and ministries as well use technology to collect data on students' attainment, the dropout rate, and try to intervene. All of that, to me, is just scratching the surface. I truly believe that in the future, we'll be able to use data to really work on the learning part, on the personalization of learning. So I'm sure everybody here buys from Amazon or any other online store. These web portals or apps have very sophisticated technology that understand how you shop, how you behave, what you're interested in, and what's your pattern. Do you tend to buy 2 things at a time? They might have you recommended X, Y, and Z. If you're a repeat one, they might give you just one and then email you later. So there's a lot of technology built on understanding how consumers behave. We're yet to see that in higher education. I have a twin boy and a girl, Muhammad and Haya. God bless their heart. They're 7. But they could not be any different. Muhammad is very abstract. I can teach him maths with numbers and he get it. Haya is more visual. I have to teach her differently. She learns differently. So I think technology in the future will be able to get the most out of people by learning how they understand. And don't mistake that with personalized learning. Personalized learning today is not personalizing it to how Razan learns or how Ahmad learns. It's more about pacing it out. So let's say we're in high school, you're smarter than I am, you get to do AP courses. So by the time you graduate, you finish technically university level credit in high school, and you finish university faster than I do, whereas I'd have to do the full term. Personalized is more about pacing. It does not change the way we teach. So I think in the future, similar to the disruption that we've seen in consumer buying and consumer behavior, we will see that in learning, and it'll be a far more different experience, a far more enjoyable.
Okay, great. Your Excellency, unfortunately, our time is almost up, but I do have to ask the final awkward question that we always ask at the end of interviews. What is your salary expectation?
Good one. Well, if the job is at Misk, I don't care what the price is. But on a serious note, honestly, I think coming in from the UAE, what you guys doing here in Misk and Saudi, mashallah, on a broader scale, is something that we all feel very passionate about, something that we all feel very positive about. Yani, mashallah, the changes that have happened over the past 2 years are phenomenal, to say the least. And the complexity of Saudi Arabia being geographically spread. The UAE is a relatively younger country in age, smaller geographical spread. So it might be easier to do some quick wins, but I think what you are doing, all eyes are in Saudi Arabia, including the Emirat. Wallah ya'atikum alf afiyah, wa ihna ma'akum khatwa khatwa.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for being here. I mean, I'm sure everybody here in the room appreciates you sharing your experience and insights with us. But I don't want to be very selfish and be the only person asking questions here. So if we can have some questions from the audience. Number 3, please.
Assalamu alaikum, Your Excellency.
Come,
I'm Jihad Nimoussa, and I'm from Morocco. I'm a psychologist and have a startup there working on mental health. But I also grew up in Emirat, in Abu Dhabi. And the education that I got there has given me a lot, and I want to give back to the country. So what would you recommend for me to do?
Interesting. I think a quick one, if I want to be selfish on the educational part, we do have a Teach in the UAE initiative where anybody can contribute and teach in a philanthropic way. But I think, to be honest, maybe at this day and age, what you can do the most is to take your learnings from the UAE and apply them wherever you are. You said you benefit tremendously. I'm sure you can add value to that. We're also establishing, within the next month, inshallah, an alumni platform where we say anybody who studied in the UAE and went abroad, we want to stay connected. We want them to be our ambassadors, and we want them also to give us feedback, right? So I give my team feedback all the time, but it won't be as good as somebody who studied and then worked abroad. You have a different perspective than the students that are actually in the UAE. So I think on that front, there are plenty of ways. Alhamdulillah, al-farasa kabira fil Imarat. Even my personal Twitter account is open. I take feedback from people. But I think there are many ways that you can do. You can either teach, you can give us feedback, and even be part of this fabric of society. Al-Imarat al-Yawm, mashallah, has more than 200 nationalities. For contributing, whether through a startup or by teaching, or even just giving us feedback is all appreciated. Shukran.
Thank you, Your Excellency.
By the way, Razan gets to choose, not me, عشان ما تحسوا رتبنا الموضوع.
I think we have one more question here. Number 1, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. It's a very interesting talk. I'm Jordan from the United States. And my question concerns something that you spoke about the need for adaptable education. And I'm wondering if you think there is any either government or institution that you think is really moving towards that goal, and how can other institutions maybe model themselves after that? Thank you.
I think to me that's currently, honestly, I think this is white space. What I refer to about adapting technology to the way people learn is still new space. I'm yet to see a country as a whole or an institution that leads that. We're doing research on it internally, but I think it's an opportunity for people to really excel. There's lots of publications on it, but an entity that really took that and started implementing it in real life, to me is yet to be seen. But I feel very passionate about it. Maybe you can be one of the people who contribute to it. Thank you.
We have one more question here. Number 2, please.
Bismillah, assalamu alaikum. Ibrahim al-Rajhi from Saudi Aramco. I was very interested to listen to your output in terms of education and applying it to your practical life or also in your work life. So my question would be, what would be your advice for people who are starting their professional career, along with new graduates perhaps, in applying what they've learned and how to really be pragmatic with their own professional agenda or career for the future?
So again, your question is, for a fresh graduate?
Yeah, so it's more for people who are just starting their professional career and fresh graduates. How can they apply what they've learned in terms of, you said, soft skills and the whole I kind of education with their own kind of agenda for the future? So you started from a humble beginning to becoming Your Excellency as a minister. So kind of a reflection of that.
To me, I don't think I have a magic formula, to be honest. I think you have to first pick the right job. And the right job, to me, is first and foremost by the leader. I've carefully picked my jobs where I know that the person that leads that organization has very strong values. I really believe in that. Secondly, somebody that I can learn from. That to me is number 1. And secondly, the mission of that organization. What are you trying to achieve? Can I contribute to that? Besides that, you've laid the foundation for a job that you are truly passionate about. If you're passionate about a job, trust me, you will develop. If you're unhappy, if the dynamics are negative, you won't be able to develop your skills. It's only in a positive environment. You can ask even Razan, she's part of my secretariat team. We're very selective in hiring. We only have now, 8 or 9 people? But we pick them based on personal attributes because I'm a strong believer that culture is very important. And in the absence of a positive culture, nobody can develop their skills. You'd have to be secure enough to be able to have people give you feedback. You have to be secure enough to hire people who are smarter than you to work with you. And that's also a challenge in some areas. So I think there's no right formula. I think if you have the right education, that's number one. B, choose an organization that has the right leadership and vision. And C, find a culture that allows you to flourish. After that, everything will happen, and you will have to have a responsibility on yourself to constantly educate yourself, to constantly develop yourself. People might give you feedback, but it's your responsibility to upskill yourself. It's your responsibility. Throughout my career, I've taught myself and taught myself again, and I'm sure I'll be teaching myself again. You have to become a self-learner. That, to me, is the most valuable asset. Adaptable, to me, means being a self-learner and being able to understand what are your gaps and fill them. Thank you.
By the way, I completely agree with His Excellency about being passionate. It is definitely the key ingredient to being successful in your career. And I'm not just saying that just because you're sitting here and you're my boss, but it is definitely a key element in your professional careers. Your Excellency, I think we'll take a couple more questions. There's number 3 over there.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam.
This is Aisha Mir. I'm a high school student and working on a startup art scientific makeup paintings. I would like to ask Your Excellency that what is the most important skill that I, as a member of the youth community, must equip myself to achieve sustainable development, promote research, and maintain strong relationships with the nature, and adapt myself in this era of digitization and advanced technology? Thank you.
Sure. Well, you answered my question. You said adapt, so you answered my question. But in a more pragmatic way, I think you have to develop empathy. You have to be aware of the other person that you work with. Communication is a very complex thing, and I've learned that the hard way. Sometimes I might give Razan some feedback, and I mean it good. She might take it sensitively, which she doesn't, by the way. But I think communication, to be honest, in a society is very important. We are naturally a very conservative society, and we're proud of that. But there's no harm in being able to adjust and be more empathetic to understand how people behave, how people react. And I think that's an advantage to people who historically study arts and humanities, because you understand history and culture and, different cultures and how they communicate. STEM tends to suffer from that. STEM students tend to focus more on the technical side, which is not what the labor market requires. If you ask anybody that hires students, they would want people who know how to communicate well. So to answer your question short, I would say A, adaptability, as you answered yourself. 2, empathy and understanding the community around you. And 3, to be able to communicate in an effective manner.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Unfortunately, we are being warned by the Misk team that we don't have any more time for questions. But I do want to thank you, Ma'alik, one more time for being here and for sharing all of that experience and wealth with us and with the Saudi youth. And I think I can speak on behalf of the audience and the Misk team that you are definitely hired, and we would be more than happy to welcome you with open arms.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.